Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. So I have the XLM chart open, and I'd like to go over the macro structure of this chart. Now, I did a previous video on the macro structure of the XLM chart, and one of the commenters, Matt5004, noted that there is another chart that even goes further back. So that is the Coinbase chart. I have pulled it up, and I'd like to go over this chart because the original structure at the very beginning is really important. It is those original fractals that are copied throughout the rest of the chart. So in doing this, it will shed more light on the other video that I made. It will bring more clarity, and you'll just have a wider understanding of what these fractals look like and the deviations that, or the evolutions of those fractals that take place over time. So one key thing to note here is that when a fractal repeats, the basic idea of the basic pattern gets repeated. However, the timing, the height, and the depth does not repeat. Those are always going to be original. So that can mean a fractal can play out on a larger scale or a smaller scale, or parts of a structure can be higher or lower than the original one. So you will see that dynamic at play throughout this chart. So here we are at the very beginning of the XLM chart. I have these boxes on already. So this chart starts in 2014, and it starts with the lower decline. Now this is just one of three fractals that make up the overall decline. This lower decline, the basic idea of it is there are three waves. So price moves up, does one wave or one bounce, it moves back up again. In the second one, drops, and then does this tiny little bounce at the bottom. So that is the essence of the lower decline. After the lower decline, price moves into a range-bound time that exists after the decline and before the next bull run. I take this range-bound time and I divide it into two basic fractals. So the first fractal in this range-bound time has three waves to it, three basic waves. Wave 1, Wave 2, and then Wave 3. There we see them a little clearer. Wave 1, Wave 2, and then Wave 3. The second range-bound fractal has three basic waves to it. Wave 1, Wave 2, and Wave 3. Price declines and on this third one before moving up into the next structure, which is the bull run, folks. Look how large this bull run is when compared to the structures that came before it. This bull run just knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was an awesome bull run. Now, this one is an interesting bull run because the second time the bull run takes place, it doesn't look quite like this, although it has the same basic idea, the same basic structure in place. So this one, price moves up, and it does just this slow motion wave right here. And then it starts to move up more aggressively with these kind of waves or stair steps up, and it finally breaks and just goes up real fast. It comes to a peak, and that is the bull run. We'll have to circle back to this structure and compare the next time the bull run takes place and see how they kind of compare to each other. So after the bull run comes the crash. Now this is the first part of the overall decline. So the crash is where price moves down very aggressively. It kind of does so in a stair-step pattern. Just like it moved up in a stair-step pattern, it does the same thing on the way down. This is aggressive movement downward. It finally bottoms out, and then price pulls back up in the decline. So this decline is actually interesting because it's different from the next iteration of this decline that takes place further on down the chart. Let's examine this structure. So you have this little tiny wave right here, and then boom, it shoots up, comes to a peak, and then it kind of works its way down in another kind of stair-step fashion down to a point. So that concludes that structure right there. It now enters into the lower decline. Price moves back up. So, folks, this is where the chart begins to repeat again. So this structure, this macro structure started with the lower decline. So we are now officially in the repetitive phase of the macro structure. So to make things a little simpler, I have copied and pasted the original structure right here onto this one, and I continue to do it. So I take the original fractals of the original structure and I copy and paste them onto the part of the chart that comes after the original structure. So as you can see, when compared to the original structure, it's similar, but it's also a little different. So price moves up in the first wave, moves up again in the second wave. This time around, it declines sharper. Remember, timing, height, and depth are always going to be original. So this time it went further, went lower than the original structure, and then it does that bounce at the bottom. So that's the lower decline. It then goes into the range-bound time. So we see the two different fractals, and this blue one is the original one. Again, we have all the basic parts there, wave 1, wave 2, and wave 3. Let's zoom in on this a little more so you can get a better understanding of this. So here you have the first wave, second wave, and third wave. Look how this structure plays out. So again, timing, height, and depth, they're always going to be original. So the original structure, this original wave just shot up super high compared to the second time around. It did not go as high, but it still does the wave. Then you have the second wave. The third wave is right here, and it even has this little move up right here. They both have it, and it's very similar after that. Now, in the next range-bound fractal, range-bound fractal 2, we have the same idea being repeated with the 3 waves, 1, 2, 3, and then eventually moving up into the bull run structure. But we see that originally this wave went way lower than it did the second time around. We have the basic idea where it comes to a low point before moving back up again into the bull run structure. So there is a good example of the basic idea, the basic pattern repeating, but the timing, the height, and the depth being unique. So now we come to the bull run. So let me zoom out here a little. So like the original one, it has this first wave right here. We see that here. However, the original one just kind of goes flat for a very long time, a very painfully long time. The second time around, it just starts working its way up immediately in a stair-step fashion. We see those stairs echoed in the original one. However, there is quite a bit of leeway between the first one and the second one, even though they both do the same things. They have those stair steps up. The first time around, it just eventually shoots up. This time around, it shot up, but it didn't go nearly as high as this time when it shot up in the original one. So what does that mean? So when the next bull run takes place, it could resemble something like this, or it could resemble something like this, or it could be a mix of the two. It's going to be original, whatever it does, but it should have these basic stair-step components, most likely. So after this bull run takes place, we have the crash. Let's zoom in on that a little. And you can see how both crashes are similar, with the stair step down to a low point. So this is where price moves aggressively, and it comes to a bottoming out before moving back up in the decline structure. So the first decline structure had this little tiny wave right here, and then it shoots up to come to a peak before kind of bouncing its way down and coming to a low point before moving back up again. The second time around, look at this. This little tiny wave was magnified, much larger. So this is a really good example of timing, height, and depth being unique. So the basic idea of this wave is repeated, but it is very large this time around. So that is something that can happen when structures repeat. It comes to a peak, and then the wave down is very similar to the original one. So now we come to that lower decline once again. So this is the third iteration of this macro structure. So here we are zoomed in to get a better look. And as you can see, the third time around, it still sticks to its basic idea where you have wave 1, wave 2, it drops, and then that bounce, the wave 3. This actually, if you scoot it over here, looks very similar to the second wave. So the timing on this is slightly different, but for the most part, it's pretty close. In fact, when you move it like that, you see even this right here matches even better. So price moves back up again in the first range-bound fractal. And again, the original one just like was so much higher than on that first wave. The second wave, let's scoot this over. You see that the second wave is very similar to the first wave, and then that third wave is also similar, just the timing is different. So here we are, we're caught up to current times, and we are in the second range-bound fractal. This is the original structure. Now, we'll have to see how it plays out. The other iteration of this back here, it kind of grinded up to a point. Will it do something similar to this? It's always possible. Or will it have this steeper decline right here? All this stuff is yet to be seen. So I would expect some originality the way this plays out, but the basic 3 waves is most likely going to copy, so we should expect that. Once this second range-bound fractal is complete, folks, we move into the bull run. Now, I don't know how high this will be. I don't know the exact pattern this will play out. It's probably going to be one of the two, or could be a mix of both of them, but expect the stair steps up to a peak. Well, folks, that's my presentation. So as you can see, XLM has a repetitive structure while the basic ideas repeat. The timing, the height, and the depth, they're unique, which leads to a unique expression of the same basic fractal. We are almost at the bull run. We need to finish the second range-bound fractal. I don't know how long that range-bound fractal will take. It could be a short one. This one right here was quite a bit shorter than this one or this one, so maybe we'll get lucky and this one won't be this long. It'll be shorter. We'll have to see how that plays out. Nonetheless, we are getting close to a bull run, and that is exciting. I believe XLM is an excellent coin. I think it could have a nice bull run. I don't know how high it will go, but XLM does seem to get some nice airtime in its bull runs. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but if you did like what you saw, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. And you know, if you're not subscribed yet, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. This type of technical analysis you just saw is unique. It is something that I have discovered and developed. You're not going to find this anywhere else. I will continue to follow this chart and provide updates as it continues to develop. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.